Expert, a web series designed to provide you with practical information on business and finance. I am your host, Nicole Pride, and co-hosting with me today is none other than the Reverend Dr. DeForest B. Soaries Jr., who is our founder and ingenious leader for the D-Free movement. And Dr. Soaries started the D-Free movement decades ago to provide the Black community with tools, resources, information to help eliminate debt and build wealth. And under that umbrella is Ask the Expert, where we bring in leaders who are knowledgeable in specific fields that can help you advance your financial goals. And with that, we are so happy to bring to you today, all the way from South Africa, Nizenande. She is such a bright light, and she helps others shine. Under her business, her agency, the Karani Leadership Agency, she helps other African professionals sharpen their leadership skills and pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. I would love for you to visit her LinkedIn page. You are going to see such a stirring TEDx talk where she talks about her inward transformation that makes her the powerful force that she is today. So I'm so delighted to bring you here, to have her here today for you to meet her. One thing I'll leave you with that gives you a little bit more insight about who she is. This is a quote from her. "My primary aim in life is to be free and to lead others to their own freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of movement, thought, speech, and prosperity. Free to grow in spirit, be strengthened in joy, and to labor in love." Isn't that wonderful? Welcome, Nizenande.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that generous introduction. I'm very excited to be here. And good afternoon as well to Dr. Soaries. Thank you for being here in this conversation.
I could not miss this conversation. I have heard about you from your sister and your brother-in-law, and you have been my hero ever since. But this is
powerful.
But on the larger scale, what's happening in South Africa since Mr. Mandela's legacy has been lesser known to people around the world, and Black people, particularly in America, feel such an affection for Black people in South Africa. I think your story is going to help close some of the gaps that need to be closed. So thank you for being here.
Powerful. Thank you.
And Nizenande, for our community, can you just tell us your full name?
Okay, I can. It's Nizenande Machi. Nizenande, I think, names are quite prophetic where I come from, and we name quite intentionally. Nizenande means until it prospers, until it multiplies. So keep doing it. Multiply in perpetuity almost. Let there be more of you. So I love my name, as you can tell.
That's a great name.
Yeah.
And I think you're fulfilling your destiny. So if you can share with us, how did you get into this whole area of leadership development?
Okay, sure. It started quite long ago. It actually started during my university years, and I guess I won't kind of tell the full story chronologically and maybe locate it in key milestones. But I realized during university that we were all there to get a curriculum to learn. It was academic. We were pursuing degrees, but it was quite unclear to me how that would yield my success. So I'm going to get this degree and I'm going to work as something, but what else should I be doing, pursuing, discovering about myself or about the world that almost charts the path for my success? And then I got interested in the language of leadership, the concept of leadership from there, because it relates to matters that aren't necessarily happening in the physical, but are happening in your spirit, in your cognition, in your intellect. How is it that you are taking the information in and building an understanding from it? And that curiosity put me in one of my most critical roles, which was consulting for an organization that had been founded in, I think it was in Boston in the US. It was called Mzingo. And what they did is they ran international programs. So the module during your MBA that needs to be in a consulting environment or impact or, kind of that global module. That's what Mzingo would run for universities in Europe and America and bring some of those students into either South Africa, Brazil, Peru on social impact consulting projects. And that was my first experience of, there's a world that's happening outside of the academics. And that's how I started then moving from that into Karani, where it was curriculum design, where it's tracing the learning journey to yield a result, on that goal, I guess.
So I think a lot of our young professionals can relate to that, particularly those who have a liberal arts major. They have the knowledge, but then they feel a little lost. Okay, what do I do with that? And it sounds like for you, just being having the experience and going into leadership opportunities and somewhat like fellowships and internships that we would equate today. Was there anything else specific, tangible steps that you did to connect the bridge from knowledge to having this self-discovery?
Practical experience. Yes, there were a few. The first thing was, then I was young and I was still under my parents' care. So it was quite critical to have a conversation with them to say, look, I'm having this inquiry and it's quite tough. Because, think about it this way, growth is not pretty. It's quite, when I think of a seed germinating underground, it probably is quite a scary process to break free from that hard shell, and kind of spread when you're used to being so confined. So I always equate some of that learning for me to being, it looked like a crisis, but it was actually a transformation. Mm-hmm. So that first thing was allowing that to happen. The second thing then also was getting coaching. So I signed up for the university's, what was it called? Career Center, that Career Center. And I think when we're young, we have so much stigma around getting help that we don't need to have, and it's like, I actually don't know how to chart a way for myself. Can someone who, whether even if it's not knows, but has seen enough permutations of this help me do something about it for myself? And so got a coach, career counseling. And then thereafter, I think this was one of the most critical decisions I made, and it was a tough decision to make, is I had to either decide, I made the decision to not prioritize earning a very high income over working in the environment that would get me where it is that I'm thinking I want to go, And it was tough because a lot of my friends at the time were getting very successful, and I'm the one who's still working for that small time organization or, pursuing that dream that I should have let go of because everybody's let go of it or whatever. So that was one of the most critical decisions, I would say. And then I've never let go of coaches. I've always had someone that I draw counsel from. I learn a lot from counsel and trying myself out. And then of course you start to study. I like to say that I learn academically from saturation. So I first try myself out because then failure is out of the way. I'm not scared of getting it wrong because I assume I probably will. And then I realized, oh no, there's a skill here that I can gain. And that's when I start to pursue further studies within that field. So I've gotten lots of qualifications thereafter, etc. But mostly as I was on the road and the journey.
You have shared a lot of principles that could create a course right now. Mm-hmm. But I really want to focus in on your business. What do you actually do? What does your company do? How do you generate income? What do you have to sell in order to stay afloat?
Okay, so there's 3 parts to our business model. So the company is called Karani Leadership, and we've banded it under the term of leadership. So that quote that you read, Nicole, how do we lead people to their intellectual, financial, and creative freedom? We've called that leading people to freedom leadership. And so there's 3 parts to it. There's your traditional leadership development consulting. So that's running programs within corporations or organizations, and that are around taking a person from graduate level to executive levels. It can either be coaching, it can be team dynamics, workshops, etc., that are mapping out how it is that we can take you. And of course, you do a professional development plan that take you from point A to point Z. The second part to it is the creative freedom. So we translate what we do in the leadership development in the creative sector. And the main reason I've chosen the creative sector and not general entrepreneurial development is South Africans, because of the history that you referred to at the start, Dr. Soris, we have legacy apartheid and legacy degradation. And so conceptually, even degradation of the spirit, of the mind, of the soul to some degree, because lots of Black people were excluded from the means of production, right? We weren't allowed to labor, we weren't allowed to have land, we weren't allowed to work and use our minds. And so what that has yielded is a lot of generational poverty, looks like joblessness. But even in our most stripped version, one thing that Black people, especially in South Africa, pursue is the creative arts. People will sing, people will act, people will play games, they'll create new games. And so if we find people who are unemployed and supposedly dejected already doing something creative, how can we enable them to learn how to generate sustainable incomes from that? Because I find you doing what you are doing, and I give you some principles of how it is that you can grow that into a sustainable income earning vehicle. And so that's why the creative sector, it's our means actually of redress, if I can call it like that, more than it is entrepreneurial development. But how it translates from the leadership element is that traditional business is about generating income. The income is the means to the end, whereas creativity, your creative output is actually the end, and income and business is the vehicle that you can use to do that sustainably. And so how can we ensure that young South Africans, Black South Africans, are able to make money in the long term, pay their bills, buy a car? They don't all have to be rich. Everyone wants to be the next big creative, but it bothers me that creativity that is so pervasive and ubiquitous is the one place where people can't even pay their rent from it, And so for us, then we said that actually is not only a systemic issue, which we obviously agitate in that and advocate for, but it may also be a learning issue, a developmental, a leadership, spirit, soul, mind. There's a lot that is happening. And then, so that's the second element. And then, of course, what's emerged from there is Karani Finance, which supports the creatives. What we are finding, we've had to establish something we're calling a dignity fund, if I should call it that. And it happened in response to what we were finding with our creatives, is that creativity sometimes can expose you and expose your nakedness, whereas you can have stringent measures for your traditional entrepreneur that you need to reach these milestones and I'll give you $500. What you need to do with a creative is kind of just give them $500 to pay rent so that they can think and stay creative, so that that creative output can actually generate the income. So we've helped entrepreneurs in all kinds of places along the journey, but we're calling it Dignity Finance because it's the finance that just keeps your loins girded so you can also participate meaningfully in the marketplace. So those are the three models, if you can see it come together.
So there are, I'm sure, a lot of our viewers who are watching, they either have some type of creative skill or some type of means to be able to make the money. So how is it that you take someone who, if they have some type of skill in the arts, take them from just being an artist to actually generating income? What are the concrete steps that you take them through?
Okay. So generally how we've worked with it in the past is that it's been from business to business, right? Mm-hmm. And we haven't, this next year, we're actually going to start recruiting our first cohort of creatives directly. We're a little bit nervous in case we get lots coming in. But generally how we've done it is we would partner with an institute, whatever that creative institute is. It can even be either a cultural organization, some of the language organizations generally would participate with us, an art gallery, whatever. There's these these intermediaries within the environment that are actually mandated to work with creatives. And so we would provide the learning and the curriculum and the progress. So maybe let me take you to kind of what they would come into. We recruit the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs then are assigned, or the creatives, which we are converting into entrepreneurs, right, are assigned a coach. They're assigned so it's a business coach, it's a life coach, and it is a performance coach, okay? And the reason that is the case is we are like, a lot of your struggle in business doesn't happen in the classroom. It happens when you are needing to meet somebody and you're terrified and you don't have someone to phone and say, I'm nervous, can you either come with me or negotiate this with me or whatever. So we've called them like your specialized advisory board that you have available for different things. Your life coach is there for yourself, your limiting beliefs, your struggles, when you don't think you can, and they're addressing all kinds of things. Your performance coach is, how do we start to talk about what you are able to do? What do you have? Your strengths, your critical skills, your abilities, your networks, and leveraging those. And then the business coach is the one who's concerned about how you're generating income. So you have them for a period of time. It can either, our programs range between 3 months to about 12 months. We're wanting to take it to 24. And we also do peer-to-peer learning. So we will send you information about, each month is themed. The first month might be understanding your creative vision and articulating it. And you'll watch some videos. It's all generated content internally, some of it. And you watch some videos, you consult with your coaches. It's all organized at a minimum standard. So maybe we say you have to meet each of them twice this month, and you try some stuff out, some meet more. And then we consolidate it in a peer review workshop. So we never really lecture. We used to at the start. It doesn't work very well, as we discovered. And so from there, you are sharing insights. You're saying, oh, that question was really tough. How did you tackle it? And someone says, I tackled it like that and this. And then we also help you build your pitch. So the key outcome for us as a success indicator that you did well on this program is, at the end of it, we need you to have a business pitch. And at each milestone, a business pitch and a model, of course, but at each milestone, we actually also want you to have generated X amount of money. So we get people to market as quickly as possible, because you need to start seeing that it's possible. You know, just because you're a musician, it doesn't mean an album is the only way to generate money. Go find your local restaurant that needs a performer every Friday and go and sing there, you know, and that's going to give you 3,000 you never had before. So that's the full program. And then, of course, they graduate and move on to the next level, if I should call it that. Is that clear?
No, it's very clear. I just want to connect the dots for some of our viewers, because you've said so many gems that I think are really helpful, particularly for those who are starting out in their career or career changers. There's so many people who find that, you know, they're not quite in the industry, or their heart's desires aren't being fulfilled. They have a lot of skill sets, but they don't know how to pivot so that they have a more satisfying career. And so one of the things that you talked about is over and over is coaching, right? Mm. So you need a business coach to help direct you. So either if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, that means a business coach. If you just know you want to change but don't know where to get started, that might be a life coach. And then also just finding resources too. One of the things that you talked about was just being able to, what was the other thing? Knowing what your goals are for your career. You know, one of the things, having known Reverend Story so long, I'll refer to things that he's taught me, right? So one of the things that Reverend Story has always said is know what goals that your job or career needs to meet. Sometimes that's financial, other times that may be just gaining a skill, right? And so if you're trying to pivot careers, maybe the goal is not to make that, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure salary, but obtaining new skills or being able to position yourself with others that can grow you or grow your network in the area that you're trying to go to. So I think that's really key. One of the other resources that I think people overlook too is their the higher ed institution that they graduated from. The career services has a lot of resources and a network of professionals that can provide advice or at least be open to a cup of coffee to get information. So this is really helpful. And then the last key thing that I think that you reiterated too is being able to strategically make partnerships. So it's not just looking at the consumer, but maybe business to business partnerships, looking at how you can
Yes.
partner with other organizations. So this is really so helpful. Before we end today, I'm just wondering if there's like one key piece of advice that you would love to give our viewers today about how to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams.
But let me narrow down the answer to this context, because South Africa is still a tough place for Black people.
Yes.
And the world is a tough place for women. And so thinking about Nicole's question about what is the last thing you want people to know, I want it to be within the context of what is it like being a young Black woman in South Africa, building your own business? What are the things you've had to have in order to express yourself, build your business, generate revenue, and then lead other people to success?
Sure. That's a personal one that I can answer quite vulnerably as well, because of the context that I live in, and I've had to build a business, and I would say, building off the legacy struggles in this country, I think the challenge occurs at a systemic level and institution level, but also an individual level. So systemically, I think we have background is that women are chronically excluded from income generating means. And when they are participating, they are undermined, they're overlooked and not accelerated. So you have a lot of women with talent, with ability that systemically are not being put in positions where they can inform, whether it's policy frameworks, where they can inform the advocacy pieces, the lobbying, and inform it about the perspective of a woman and their experience, right? At an institutional level, what is happening for women, I would surmise, is that we are not actually, I don't know how to put this, we are aggregated. I think that's the word, so when there is no peculiarity about the challenges that we face, and I think this is global, it's not only South African, but I think in South Africa, where we have very strong conservative and patriarchal societies, women still are relegated to subservience. You never really fully step out and in to your power, to your authority, whether as a manager, as a leader. And what that yields, I would say, individually, is that so many of us women are steeped under the blanket of our limiting beliefs about our worthlessness, that we cannot, that what we are doing is not enough. It took me a very long time to even, let alone articulate, accept that leadership is something that matters. In my mind, I needed to be a scientist or the best something before, because it was always like, oh, what a women thing to do, human capital development. Wow, that's very feminine. That's not a compliment, in fact, possibly even an insult in its intention. And so the kinds of things that you have to overcome is you are always operating on the periphery of where the action is. If you say I'm good at leadership, someone says, well, the action is actually at entrepreneurship. And when you say, well, I'm good at entrepreneurship, someone says, well, it's actually tech entrepreneurship. The standard keeps being moved and the bar keeps being raised so that you can never really access. And what I've had to develop is a whole lot of grit, a whole lot of resilience, but also very safe and intimate spaces to fall apart and to grow. Because who I am in the public is really not who I am in the privacy of my own home. At home, I am mom and I am my husband's wife. And it works for me and it's important to me because it's where I am sustained. It is not where I am kind of sent out, it's not where I perform. A tree doesn't eat its own fruit in order to be sustained. I can't benefit from the fruit that I bear in the public. And so at home is where I am watered in close relationships. So I always say that as women, we have a responsibility for ourselves and how we interpret our self-love and our activism to really make sure that we create intimate places where we are loved and are cared for, where we are told the truth. My husband will say, you are amazing and you're better than what you did last week, and I'm like, oh, now I have to keep trying because he knows my potential. It's not a threat and he loves me, And so it's really, we need that tribe, we need that community. You need the place where you come out of no man's land of that warfare. You go tend and dress to your wounds and you come back in your resilience and your grit. A place to repair, a place to break down and come back out. So I would say that's what a lot of women need to continue to be as powerful as they are, to continue to be as able and to be as resistant as we have to be and to push back. Someone said to me recently, you move around like you're a man, how dare you? And I said, oh my goodness, I am such a woman.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed it. But it's because it's so offensive, and yeah, and so I would, maybe I'll leave it there. I think that's critical.
Well, you'll hear this again. A tree does not eat its own fruit. Now, that is something that somebody needs to know a lot about. I just, I'll be using that. I'll give you credit the first 2 or 3 times and say my sister from South Africa. But no, it's just stunning. When we talk about asking experts, it's not so much subject matter experts, but experiential experts. And you certainly have shared your expertise. I can't wait to get back to South Africa to meet you. And also, Nicole, I can't wait to have her do some leadership training for our team here in America. From there, because of technology, we can get that done. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.